Here at Methodist Hospital, newsmen were aware of published reports that the body of someone called Howard Hughes was inside the pathology department. But those were just reports. It hadn't been confirmed. And as of 1:15, those reports were still not confirmed. That is the time that Dr. Joseph Yehemchik appeared in the hallway going into the room in the basement where the body has lain since yesterday afternoon. Newsmen learned everyone is interested in confirming the death of Howard Hughes.
Doctor, did the federal government ask you to positively identify Howard Hughes?
I have no comment on that.
Have you heard from the federal government?
Again, no comment on that.
What means would you have to positively identify him?
Well, the usual, personal identification, fingerprints, x-rays, dental charts.
After this autopsy, will you be definitely certain that it is Howard Hughes in there?
Oh, I should hope so, yes, sir.
Later, the FBI confirmed they had asked for fingerprints to be made of the body. The doctor accompanying Hughes on the chartered medical jet that flew him to Houston from Acapulco yesterday said he died at 1:37 in the afternoon. Hughes' identity was supported only by a birth certificate presented to Customs and by statements from aides to the mysterious billionaire. After 2 hours and 45 minutes of waiting, as Dr. Yehemchik and Dr. Jack Titus, the Methodist Hospital Chief of Pathology, worked, hospital officials talked to newsmen. The hospital spokesman announced they had confirmed the dead person is Howard Hughes and that he died of chronic renal failure.
Microscopic examinations are available.
What part did age play in this?
First, it was clear that Mr. Hughes liked to lead a life of secrecy. I find no fault with the way he lived his life. As his physician and as those that were associated with me in this matter, we all were determined that in this critically ill situation that we were anticipating, that we could do nothing more than to try to continue what we thought he would like. That, as you know, the kidneys have the responsibility of getting rid of the waste products that the body makes, and they come out in the urine. Now, the kidneys are a marvelous organ, and when it doesn't function very well, the waste products accumulate, and unless something is done about it, the patient will die.
Dr. McIntosh implied age may have had something to do with Hughes' death, but he said renal failure is officially the cause of death. The body of Howard Robart Hughes, Jr. was taken out of Methodist Hospital to the George Lewis Funeral Home. Secretive, mysterious, recluse Howard Hughes was wheeled away in a standard hospital bed. His face, not seen in public for 2 decades, still hidden from public view. Frank Agras, Eyewitness News.
The flag at the Hughes Tool Company near the Houston Ship Channel was at half-staff. Otherwise, activities appeared normal. Hughes had sold out his interest in the company in 1972 for about $152 million. Inside, a mini-museum pays tribute to the Hughes family, Howard Sr. and Jr. It was 1909 when the senior Hughes developed the first rotary rock bit for oil drilling. Howard Hughes Jr. started as a salesman. Pictures here tell other parts of the Hughes story. His last appearance publicly in Houston, a parade celebrating his record-breaking round-the-world flight in 1938. Hughes' one-time Houston home on Yoakum in the Montrose area is now part of St. Thomas University. Secrecy surrounded Hughes up to and even past the end. Shortly after he died, Customs Inspector Marie Denton viewed the body.
He was covered except for his head. The only thing I saw was a partial profile of the right side of his face. And he had dark, rumpled hair is all I can say as far as the description goes of the actual thing. I did not see a full face of the man.
How did he look? Did he look very bad?
In my opinion, yes.
Marie Denton's comments, the final chapter in a secretive story of Howard Hughes' life and death. Hughes will be buried in this picturesque plot at Glenwood Cemetery next to his mother and father. It is here that the factual history of Howard Hughes will come to an end, but the facts on 37 years of seclusion may never be known. David Glott, Eyewitness News.
George H. Lewis Funeral Home says it has been asked not to make any announcement about funeral plans for Hughes. Word is the funeral will be private and no public announcement of the time or place will be made. Meanwhile, the question of what will become of Hughes' $2 billion is still unanswered. Houston law firm that will help probate Hughes' estate is...
Hughes' doctors had arranged for him to be treated at Methodist Hospital under a false name, J.T. Conover. But Hughes, dead on arrival, was taken directly to the morgue. Dr. Joseph Yahimchek, county medical examiner, ordered an autopsy, a routine procedure in Texas, but he went beyond the routine to establish for certain that the body in the morgue was indeed Hughes's.
The usual, personal identification, fingerprints, x-rays, dental charts.
After this autopsy, will you be definitely certain that it is Howard Hughes in there?
Oh, I should hope so, yes, sir.
Later, it was learned Treasury Secretary Simon asked Yahimchek to make a fingerprint check to verify the body's identity. The autopsy lasted several hours. Hughes' body, concealed under a yellow blanket, was turned over to funeral home attendants and wheeled away. The autopsy disclosed that Hughes, 70, died of a chronic kidney condition.
What part did age play in this?
Pardon me?
What part did age?
Oh, I'm glad that we expect in the aging process. And you know, I think that as far as I look at it, this man had lived a full life, and several of his organs, I say several, I want to correct that. That's absolutely not true. We have only evidence that the kidney played out. Now, I'm sure when we get the looking, we'll find that there was a little here and a little there, but grossly, the only evidence was that the kidneys just had gotten the changes that one would expect.
The story of Howard Hughes began where it ended, in Houston, where he was born Christmas Eve, 1905. His father invented the first rotary bit that could drill oil wells through rock. At 19, Hughes inherited the family business, the Hughes Tool Company, then worth about $500,000. Hughes married Houston socialite Ella Rice, but it ended in divorce 4 years later in 1929. Hughes wasn't always a recluse. For years, he was fascinated with Hollywood, a rich playboy dating a bevy of starlets, Lana Turner, Katharine Hepburn, and Ava Gardner. Hughes signed a personal check for almost $24 million to buy himself the RKO studios. He became a star maker. Jane Russell was a hit in the Hughes picture The Outlaw. It was frowned on because of Russell's famous cleavage. Hughes dubbed Jean Harlow the Platinum Blonde and catapulted her to fame in a film called Hell's Angels. This movie marked the start of his lifelong love affair with aviation. Hughes became a pilot and learned to fly some of the sequences in this film himself. In 1935, he set a cross-country speed record.
Are you going to fly this plane back to the coast?
Not right away, anyway.
Do you intend to break any more records?
I'm not sure.
But he did. In 1938, New Yorkers turned out to hurl 200 tons more ticker tape than they did for Charles Lindbergh after Hughes set a 3-day, 19-hour, and 8-minute round-the-world flying speed record. Hughes always insisted on testing the planes he designed first, although he crashed in his experimental XF-11 in 1946 and almost lost his life. His last venture in aircraft design was his least successful. He built a 200-ton flying boat made of plywood to carry troops overseas, but the plane, called the Spruce Goose, flopped, and Hughes defended the loss of $18 million of government money before a congressional hearing.
Well, Senator, you know very well I not only didn't make anything, I have lost $7,200,000 to date. I put the sweat of my life into this thing. I have my reputation rolled up in it, and I have stated several times that if it's a failure, I'll probably leave this country and never come back, and I mean it.
Hughes insisted he'd make the Spruce Goose fly. He did, once, for about a mile. Hughes' second marriage to actress Jean Peters ended in divorce in 1970 as he became more and more recluse. Over the years, Hughes refused to appear in court battles over his controlling interest in TWA. In 1971, author Clifford Irving announced his famous hoax, the authorized autobiography of the billionaire. But in a telephone news conference from the Bahamas, Hughes vehemently disclaimed the book. It was disclosed last year the CIA used Hughes' ship, the Glomar Explorer, in an attempt to dredge a Russian submarine from the floor of the Pacific. In Los Angeles, columnist Jim Bacon told ABC's Dick Shoemaker of a 1972 conversation he had with his longtime friend.
I said, "Are you happy?" I said, as happy as anyone with $2.5 billion can be. And he went into a long dissertation, which finally wound up and says, "You want to know if I'm happy?" He says the answer is no.
But this may be the last photograph ever taken of a man named Howard Robart Hughes.